Hello everyone, I'm here. Vitaly, you are on the channel about business in Poland. Today we will talk about a very important, interesting topic that has been making waves over the past year. So about a year ago, we Ukrainians were given the opportunity to open private enterprises in Poland. People opened them up, made a colossal number of mistakes besides earning a lot of money. And I wanted to talk to you about these mistakes in this video. I will share with you my top eight mistakes, and I ask you to add your stories in the comments. Screw-ups, instructive stories, everything that will help the next generation of entrepreneurs avoid these mistakes. So, brew some tea, let's go. And mistake number one of the biggest, is the full ZUS. In Poland, there is a whole, let's say, subsidy system for budding entrepreneurs where there is an opportunity not to pay for the first 6 months. Most of the ZUS, the so-called old ZUS, only paying the health insurance contribution. Then for another 2 years, pay the small ZUS, approximately 560, around 600 zlotys. And then after 2 to 2.5 years, pay the full ZUS, which is roughly 1.5 to 2,000 zlotys. But this magical action will not happen by itself. You need to activate it, meaning you have to ask the government to give you this discount. Accordingly, if you haven't done this, then next month you will receive, well, like a bill for about 2,000 zlotys, and you're like, wow, 2,000 zlotys whether I'm working or not. You still have to pay, and this is already like a payment obligation, as the Poles say. The first mistake in our top list is to definitely check the box that you want this discount on paying ZUS. Mistake number 2, people compare Polish private entrepreneurship with Ukrainian private entrepreneurship. And they think these are analogous things. What you can do there in the DPO, click around and so on. Unfortunately, in Poland, there is more bureaucracy, more paperwork. Yes, private entrepreneurship is easier to manage in terms of accounting than a company. But I still recommend at the beginning, because it's a new country, new laws, to initially hire an accountant with whom you can at least consult. It doesn't cost that much, from 300 zlotys per month for up to 15 documents, for example. Well, it pays off, because any mistake can cost much, much more. A few examples of how not to compare yourself with a Ukrainian entrepreneur. For instance, in Ukraine, entrepreneurs often cannot work with VAT. Here, every entrepreneur can immediately include VAT, can request it, and accordingly already receive some advantages if you know how to work with VAT correctly. The second example, this is płat the tax, the third group of sole proprietors in Ukraine, where you pay tax based on turnover. Before the war, it was 5%, now it could be reduced to 2%. So in Poland, the rate is not fixed. That is, if you have chosen the third group, which is called rights out here, it is not fixed. It ranges from 2 to 17%. And within 1 month, you can simultaneously engage in different activities. For example, you are involved in trade with a 3% profit tax, and in the same month, you are involved in construction services. At 5.5%, you are involved in educational services at 8.5%, and you don't need to choose a specific rate. Did you just choose for yourself? Reach out. And you already have a floating rate depending on each type of service you provide or work you perform. That is, people forget about this advantage and think that they can only choose one thing. Mistake number 3 is choosing the wrong form of taxation. For this, there are special tax consultants and there are special calculators on the internet. In general, there are many ways to understand. And everyone here is reached out. The third group goes there, completely forgetting that if you have expenses to deduct for the company and you plan your income and expenses properly, maybe the first or second form of taxation might be even more beneficial for you. That is, for this, you need to understand how much you can spend and how much you plan to earn, and you need to calculate it on a calculator. And I think it's the wrong question to ask which form of taxation is the most beneficial for this. This is my type of activity. It would be correct to ask which form of taxation is more advantageous for this type of activity of mine, taking into account such income and such expenses, because the first 2 forms of taxation have certain benefits that the third does not. But we discussed this during our consultations. The next mistake is not becoming a taxpayer, but on time, for example. Your business model, I literally had a consultation today. A person orders goods from China or Ukraine, brings them to Poland to sell further in Poland within the European Union, and upon entering the EU, the person pays VAT. They pay 23% VAT on both the price of the goods and the cost of delivering these goods on everything and beyond. When selling it in Poland, he cannot reclaim this VAT because he is not a VAT payer. If he had registered beforehand or at least applied for VAT registration, he could then, when selling this product to his clients, reclaim part of this VAT. How could he get back the amount he essentially paid as a deposit to the state? The next mistake is registering for VAT immediately when you didn't need to. What's the problem? Clients have a certain level of expectation for this product and are willing to pay for your product. Let's say, I don't know, 200 zlotys. They absolutely don't care what you do with this money. Either you will give 23% of it, almost 50 zlotys to the state, or you will keep it for yourself. You will pay tax on it, but nevertheless it is less. Accordingly, this upper limit, whether you need to register for VAT immediately or not, depends on how much your client is willing to pay for the product and whether you have enough margin for it to be profitable. Perhaps it makes sense to wait with VAT until reaching 200,000 zlotys and keep a little more money for yourself. The next mistake is freezing a sole proprietorship. And these promotions that are in effect, people open or register a sole proprietorship, then realize that things aren't going well and so on. All right, I'll do it later. They put it on pause. Fortunately, it's quite easy to pause a business. We provide our clients with a video right after registering a sole proprietorship, showing how to pause the business in a few clicks. People do this, but they forget that the grace period, the first 6 months, then 2 years, which we talked about at the beginning of the video, is still ticking. And later, after a year or two, you won't be able to request that discount again, which was given to you for the first 6 months. Therefore, it is very important to start a business. When you want to start working, not before, not 6 months, in advance and freeze it. And if you have already started, then use it to the fullest. This initial period is crucial because that's where your money is. For you, this money will be the cheapest with the least losses and the last mistake in our list. Today, it's being stingy with taxes. That is, as is customary in our countries, the less you pay the state, the more you deceive it, the more of a hero you are. But here we are guests. No matter how many years we live here, 1 year, 2, 10 years, we are still foreigners. And we are forced to apply for residence cards, prove creditworthiness, and earn all sorts of karma. So if an entrepreneur has been, let's say, fully exploiting their business, writing everything off as expenses, paying nothing in taxes, and not generating any net profit, then later, when they apply for a residence card, there is a high chance that they simply won't be granted one. Why? Because essentially their business does not bring any benefit to the state. He does not create jobs, does not pay taxes for employees. He does not generate net profit. He does not pay taxes on net profit. And he stays there, limited, not growing. He does not pay VAT to the state. So in a way, it's essentially a useless story for the state. No offense to anyone. Accordingly, if you understand that you need to obtain a residence card in the future, build a credit history, and so on, consult with a credit broker. Just calculate all this math for yourself and understand how much money you need to pay to the state in the form of taxes and so on. Fortunately, this can be planned in advance so that later it will be easy. Get yourself a residence card, a mortgage for an apartment, and other useful perks that you need for living. Friends, that's all for now. I hope this video was useful for you. If so, give it a like, subscribe to our channel, share your stories in the comments, and see you in the next episode.